Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's lecture in microbiology for health sciences. Today, we're going to cover chapter 5 from our textbook, and this chapter covers eukaryotic cells and microorganisms. Let's begin by talking about what a eukaryote is. Eukaryotes are cells that contain nucleus and other membrane-bound organelles. This can include things such as the mitochondria. Eukaryotes also have three different types. There are fungi, protista, which consist of algae and protozoas, and helminths. It is believed that eukaryotes began to appear on Earth about 2 to 3 billion years ago. And how did this happen, you may ask? Well, this is because they evolved from an LCA, or a last common ancestor. This happened because bacterial and archaea cells attached to an ancestor of the eukaryotes, and when they attached, they stayed and became permanently attached to become these cells' mitochondria. Eukaryotes are also said to be unicellular and multicellular. Unicellular eukaryotes are just eukaryotes that make up one cell, and multicellular eukaryotes are eukaryotes who have multiple cells. On the right down here, you can see there is a model of a eukaryotic cell. Let's move on. Now we're going to start discussing the structures of the eukaryotic cells. The first structure we're going to discuss is the flagella. The flagella is also included in bacterial cells, but the flagella that's in eukaryotic cells is different than that of bacterial cells, as it is 10 times thicker and it is more structurally complex. The flagella of eukaryotic cells also is covered by an extension of the cell membrane. The microtubules of the flagella is made up of microtubules, and these microtubules line the entire cell. The microtubules have a cylindrical shape, they are hollow, and they are evenly spaced. And the microtubules of the flagella are used for locomotion. Think of this as like a centipede. When they walk, their legs will cross over each other. This is the same thing that a flagella does when it moves. The next we are going to discuss are cilia. Cilia are similar in structure to flagella, but although they are similar, they are smaller. They have a shorter build, and it is said that cells are said to house thousands of cilia. Cilia is only found in one type of protozoa and certain animal cells. The function of the cilia is for feeding and filtering structures that are on some other cells. Both are arranged in a 9+2 scheme. What is a 9+2 scheme? A 9+2 scheme is a cross section that reveals 9 pairs of attached microtubules. These microtubules are surrounding one single pair. I'm sorry, one central pair. Now we're going to discuss the glycocalyx. The glycocalyx is the outermost membrane of the cell, and it is also referred to as the cellular matrix. This is composed of many polysaccharides, and its function is to protect the cell. And it also gives the cell the ability to adhere to other organelles on other cells. The cell wall and the cytoplasmic membrane. Not all eukaryotes have a cell wall, but the eukaryotes that do are fungi and algae and other types of plant cells. The cell wall provides a structural support, and this is because of its rigid build and shape. The bacterial cells also contain a cell wall, but the cell wall in eukaryotes are different than that of bacterial cells due to the chemical composition. Fungal walls have an inner layer of polysaccharides that are composed of chitin, and some are composed of cellulose. The cell membrane, or also the cytoplasmic membrane, as it can be known as, is a bilayer of eukaryotic is a bilayer in the eukaryotic cells that is composed of poly that is composed of phospholipids. The phospholipids also have protein molecules that are embedded inside of them. The cytoplasmic membrane also contains sterols. Sterols are different in build and structure than that of phospholipids. The sterols give the cell rigidity and make them more structural. I mean more stable, sorry. This feature is very important in eukaryotic cells that lack the cell wall. So this would be cells other than fungal and algae cells. The internal structures of the eukaryotic cell include the nucleus, the endoplasmic reticulum, rough and smooth, the Golgi apparatus, the mitochondria, the chloroplast, the ribosomes, and the cytoskeleton. The first structure we're going to discuss is the nucleus. The nucleus, as we have learned many times, is the brain of the cell. The nucleus is also housed inside the nuclear envelope, and inside the nucleus is a nucleolus. The nucleolus is where RNA synthesis can begin to take place. In the rough endoplasmic reticulum, the outside the rough endoplasmic reticulum is connected to the outside of the nuclear envelope, and it is also contains large numbers of ribosomes. These ribosomes is what gives the rough ER its rough looking shape, and thus comes the name. The rough ER can be used to transport and store materials. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum is a different shape other than the rough ER, is that because it does not contain ribosomes, thus it gives it its smooth texture. The smooth ER functions are for nutrient processing, different types of synthesis, and it stores lipids. The Golgi apparatus consists of cisternae. The cisternae are small disc-shaped like sacs, and they help in transporting they help in transport in the cell. Once proteins are inside the Golgi apparatus, this is said to be their final destination. But when they're in the Golgi, before they hit that final destination, they are then modified because polysaccharides and lipids are added to them. The mitochondria is, as we all learned, the powerhouse of the cell, and it gives the cell energy by means of ATP. The chloroplast is only present in cells that undergo photosynthesis, with an example being any type of plant cell. And the chloroplasts take in the sunlight that is supplied and help in that process of photosynthesis. The ribosomes are located in several different parts throughout the cell. They are free floating in the cytoplasm and the cytoskeleton. They are attached to the rough ER, and they appear in the walls of the mitochondria and as well as the chloroplasts. The size of the eukaryotic ribosomes are ADS, which is much larger than, well, not really much larger than bacterial ribosomes. The cytoskeleton is made up of flexible molecules that are positioned in a crisscross formation. It anchors organelles, helps move RNA and other vesicles, and helps give the cell shape. The cytoskeleton also has three different types of filaments, as that is the actin filament, microtubules, and the intermediate filament. This is a representation of a labeled eukaryotic cell. Our first of the three different types of eukaryotes we're going to discuss is fungi. There are two different types of fungi, with that being microscopic, which is mushrooms, um, which is made of mushrooms, puffballs, and gill fungi. The microscopic fungi consist of and other types of molds. Fungi are said to be heterotrophic, which means that they acquire their nutrients from a variety of different organic materials, and they reproduce by the means of asexual and sexual reproduction with the help from their spores that they contain. There are three different types of fungal disease that the CDC studies, and that is community acquired, which is when a disease that is caught from a person who is walking out through and spending time in other places. The hospital-associated fungal disease can be caught inside and in the presence of hospitals. The opportunistic infections are infections caught by individuals who have a lowered immune system. To the right here, you can see that there is a picture of different types of fungi. The next type of eukaryote we are going to discuss is algae. Algae belong to the kingdom Protista. They live in fresh and marine water, and they undergo photosynthesis. Algae is a large group of photosynthetic organisms, and they can be recognized by members such as kelp and seaweeds. They occur in single-celled form, colonies, and in filamentous forms. Larger forms of algae can possess tissues and even simple organs. And algae is also the main component in plankton, which are the large floating communities of microscopic organisms that we see throughout water. Our next eukaryote we're going to discuss is protozoa. Protozoa, like fungi, are heterotrophs. There is suspected 65,000 different species, although I believe there are more, because I don't think we have really scratched the surface of any of how many different types of eukaryotes there are. And protozoa are said to be trophozoites when feeding. This is because they're in their motile feeding stage, and in this stage, they require food and moisture to remain active. When protozoa are said to be in a cyst stage, this means they are dormant. This is because they lack the moisture and the nutrients that they need when they are trophozoites. Protozoa are also categorized by their movement. The categories include those who move with flagella, those who move using amoeboid motion, and those who move using cilia, and finally, those with no mobility. Those are known as sporozoa. Our final type of eukaryote we're going to talk about today are helminths. Helminths consist of flatworms, which are things such as tapeworms and roundworms. Helminths are the only type of fungi that can be seen with the naked eye, with the largest type of flatworms being tapeworms that can grow upwards of 25 meters in length, and the smallest type being roundworms, as they can be as small as 1 millimeter. The helminths are also categorized by their various factors, such as their shape, their size, the presence of their hooks, suckers, and other structures that they possess, their mode of reproduction, and what kind of host they attach to. There are 50 different species of parasitic helminths, and these types of helminths need a host to live and will attach to the host in order to reproduce and to keep life going. An example of this would be tapeworms, as they reside in the human intestines and try to reproduce there. This concludes our lecture for today. I thank you all for listening, and I hope you all have a great rest of your semester. Thank you.